Is there life after death? The question of life after death is one of the most profound and enduring mysteries that humanity has grappled with since the dawn of consciousness. It hovers like a shadow over every human life, prompting us to wonder, what happens when we die? Is death the final end, a full stop to our existence? Or does something, perhaps our soul, our consciousness, continue beyond the threshold of death? Across cultures, religions, and philosophies, this question has been answered in countless ways, each offering a glimpse into humanity's deep-seated desire for immortality, for meaning beyond the grave. The fear and fascination of death. Death is perhaps the one certainty in life. We can evade many things, but not our mortality. Yet, despite its inevitability, it remains shrouded in mystery and fear. The finality of death seems at odds with the richness of life. How can something so vibrant, so conscious, simply cease to exist? To contemplate death is to confront the possibility of nothingness, of slipping into an eternal sleep where we no longer think, feel, or experience. This notion terrifies many, because it suggests that everything we are, everything we love, will vanish into an incomprehensible void. But is it really the end? The idea that life simply stops with the cessation of bodily function seems, to many, an affront to the very nature of consciousness. How can the intricate, self-aware being that we are capable of love, creativity, and profound thought be reduced to nothing? This fear, this fascination, is what drives us to seek answers beyond the material world, to imagine that perhaps there is something more, something that continues after death. The religious view, eternal life or rebirth. Throughout history, religions have offered some of the most enduring and compelling answers to the question of life after death. For many, religion provides not only solace in the face of death, but also a roadmap for what comes next. In the Christian tradition, death is not the end, but a transition to eternal life. The soul, freed from the constraints of the physical body, is judged and sent either to heaven, where it will bask in the glory of God's presence, or to hell, where it will suffer the consequences of a life lived in sin. The notion of eternal life in Christianity offers a sense of justice and hope, that the suffering and injustices of this world will be rectified in the next. Death is not feared, but is seen as the gateway to something far greater. Similarly, in Islam, the concept of an afterlife is central. Believers anticipate the day of judgment, when all souls will be resurrected and held accountable for their actions on earth. Paradise awaits those who lived righteously, while punishment befalls those who strayed from the path. In this view, death is merely a passage to a realm where eternal consequences are faced. On the other hand, in Eastern traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism, death is seen not as an end but as part of a continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. In Hinduism, the soul, or Atman, is immortal, passing from one life to the next in a cycle known as samsara. One's actions, or karma, determine the circumstances of future rebirths. The ultimate goal is moksha, liberation from this cycle and reunion with the divine essence. Similarly, in Buddhism, the aim is to escape the cycle of suffering and reincarnation through enlightenment, reaching nirvana, a state beyond birth and death. In these religious frameworks, death is far from the end. It is either a transition to another plane of existence or a step in an ongoing journey of the soul. These beliefs provide comfort by suggesting that our essence, whatever it may be, endures beyond the grave. The philosophical perspective, materialism versus dualism. Philosophy, with its emphasis on rational inquiry, offers a different approach to the question of life after death. One of the most enduring debates among philosophers is the conflict between materialism and dualism. Materialists argue that consciousness, like all other aspects of human existence, is a product of physical processes in the brain. When the body dies, the brain ceases to function, and consciousness, our sense of self, simply stops. In this view, death is the complete annihilation of the individual. There is no afterlife, no soul that lives on. We return to the same nothingness from which we came before we were born. However, dualists argue that the mind or soul is distinct from the body. René Descartes, one of the most famous dualists, claimed that the mind is non-physical and can exist independently of the body. This idea gives rise to the possibility that consciousness could survive the death of the physical body. In this view, the body is like a vessel, and death is merely the shedding of this vessel, allowing the soul or consciousness to continue its existence elsewhere. The dualist perspective aligns more closely with religious views, but even here, questions arise. If consciousness can survive death, what form does it take? What does it experience? Does it retain memories of its earthly life? Philosophers have debated these questions for centuries without reaching definitive conclusions, and perhaps that is the point. Death is a boundary beyond which human reason cannot easily pass. Near-death experiences, glimpses beyond the veil. In recent decades, near-death experiences, these have provided intriguing, albeit controversial, evidence for life after death. People who have been clinically dead and then revived often report strikingly similar experiences, floating above their bodies, moving through a tunnel, encountering deceased loved ones or beings of light, and feeling an overwhelming sense of peace. Some even describe seeing events in the room around them, which they could not have witnessed in their physical state. For those who have experienced NDEs, these moments feel profoundly real, offering what they believe is a glimpse into an afterlife. Skeptics, however, argue that these experiences can be explained as the result of the brain's response to extreme stress or lack of oxygen. But the universality and vividness of these reports raise tantalizing questions. Are they simply hallucinations, or do they offer a genuine look at what awaits us after death? The scientific view, consciousness, and the brain from a scientific standpoint, the question of life after death centers on the nature of consciousness. Modern neuroscience has made great strides in understanding how the brain functions, but the question of how subjective experience arises, what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness, remains unresolved. If consciousness is purely a product of brain activity, then it seems logical that it would cease when the brain dies. Yet, some scientists and philosophers have begun to explore the idea that consciousness might be more than just a byproduct of the brain. Some suggest that consciousness could be a fundamental aspect of the universe, akin to space and time. If consciousness is not entirely tied to the physical brain, it raises the possibility that it might continue in some form after death. Quantum physicists, too, have speculated about the role of consciousness in the fabric of reality. Though such ideas remain highly speculative and controversial, the mystery endures in the end. The question of life after death may be one that forever escapes definitive answers. For every argument in favor of an afterlife, there are compelling counter-arguments grounded in materialist philosophy or neuroscience. For every near-death experience that suggests a glimpse beyond the grave, there is a skeptic who attributes it to brain chemistry. Perhaps the true value of this question lies not in finding an answer, but in the way it forces us to confront the nature of life itself. Whether or not there is life after death, the knowledge that we will one day die shapes how we live. It reminds us of the fragility of existence and the importance of making our time here meaningful. In the face of death, we are called to reflect on who we are, what we value, and what we leave behind. As humans, we are drawn to mystery. The unknown beckons us, not just with fear, but with the promise of discovery. Death is the ultimate mystery, the final frontier we all must face. And in that uncertainty lies a strange comfort. While we do not know what lies beyond, we can embrace the journey of life with all its beauty, suffering, and wonder, knowing that it is the only journey we are truly certain of. Whether death is an end or a new beginning, it remains the ultimate riddle, one that will continue to inspire and challenge us for as long as humanity exists.